Hey, I want to welcome our viewers to a podcast on the Kennesaw Happenings podcast. This is Golfer Pete, your host, and we have a special guest here, a guest who has 4 kids. So, he's busy. So, we're not going to be long on this podcast. So, we're going to try and give you a sense of who Brian is. So, Brian, introduce yourself, who you are, the business you're in, and tell us who you serve out there.
Sure. Well, thank you, Pete, for having me on the podcast. Like Pete said, my name is Brian Bass. My wife and I, Jill, we live in Ackworth, and we're originally from New Jersey. Both of us, we were born and raised up there. We made the move to Atlanta back in 2015. So we've been in this area about 8 years, all in the Kennesaw, Ackworth. We were in Kennesaw for about 2 years, and we bought a home 5 or 6 years ago. And in Ackworth, that's where we are now. And my business, I do insurance, both personal lines. So I'm a broker. I have personal lines insurance, so all of your home, auto, boat, motorcycle, and then commercial insurance as well for business owners. And like Pete said, yep, we have 4 wonderful kids. Let me start with my wife. My wife is incredible. Her name is Jill. She is perfect for me. She is a big reason of why I do a lot of what I do. And she's blessed me with 4 kids. We have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. First 3 are girls. The 4th one's a boy. And I always tell people, I love my girls, wanted girls as well. But every guy wants a boy. And so people said, well, what are you going to do now you have 3 kids? I said, well, I'm not a quitter. We persevere. So we just keep it moving. And we had our boy who's 1 year old. And life is fun. I actually made the joke this morning that although it doesn't sound like I understand protection, as an insurance agent, I very much understand protection of protecting your family. So,
yes.
So thank you for having me on here. And just the ability to share and connect with like-minded people is a privilege.
Well, when you have kids that young, you are busy. And I'm sure your wife is really busy because she's at home with them maybe, or spending
home with them, and homeschools the 2 oldest currently. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Very busy.
My daughter homeschools too, her 3. So I understand the homeschool. I love it. I think it's the best way to really bring up, personally, but I know being that busy, why did you decide to get into commercial insurance? What was the motivation there?
Yeah, so I ended up moving, like I mentioned, in 2015. At the time, I was in New Jersey. I was in the banking industry. And so when I moved, the reason that my wife and I had moved, we made some good connections down here in Atlanta, a lot on the business side. I met a mentor who kind of coached me through a lot of personal stuff, business. And we were pregnant with our first, and we just knew we needed a switch. So my wife was not excited about this, but I said, well, babe, guess what? We're moving to Georgia. And that was a season of life. But we ended up making the move before we had our first. It was great. I made a transition to just a different bank, but doing the same thing, did that for another year. And then the guy that was mentoring me, Jeff, his son had a really successful captive insurance agency. And we had talked about me potentially doing that. We couldn't get the numbers to quite work out. A year later, his business grew a ton, and he said, hey, I really think we should do this. Made the move, and that was back in 2017. So I've been in insurance for 6 years. We built that captive agency up to be the #1 personal lines insurance company within 12,000 agents nationally. We were #1. So we had a real good thing going. And then about 2 years ago, we made the switch to go independent, where instead of just having one insurance company, we now have 10, 15, 20 of them, depending on the line of business. So just to give us more options to serve our customers better. You were talking about who do we serve? We're looking for people, and I know, Pete, this is important to you, that word relationship. It's so cliche, but that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for somebody that wants a quick price quote, give me your best number. We want somebody that understands this is what we do. We're experts at insurance. We understand the industry. We understand what you need, what you don't need. And we want a customer that wants to build a relationship where we can ask you questions to figure out what kind of policies do you need? Maybe it's a life insurance policy. Maybe it's having an umbrella policy to protect your assets. There's a lot of questions we can ask to uncover that, but we're looking for people that want that relationship.
Well, yeah, no, that is music to hear the word relationship, because transactional is a part of the internet now, where they just quote you a price and want to close you right there. So what would you say as far as, do you do business in a particular geographic, or are you How does that work?
Yep. So great question. We do all of Georgia. Obviously, this is where I live. This is my resident state. So anything commercial insurance and like I mentioned, home, auto, I can do in Georgia. We can also do most business in the Carolinas, both North and South,
Okay.
Tennessee. Florida is interesting. Florida right now is a no for me. I haven't gotten my license there because it's a very interesting industry, as you can imagine, in Florida. But I don't know if I mentioned Tennessee. And there was one more that I missed, but pretty much most
Yeah.
Southeast states.
Okay. When you shift from banking to insurance, what was the major thing that you had to learn? Was it with the difference in the industries?
It was terrifying because I realized I read a book called Mindset. I don't know if you've ever read that by Carol
I've heard of
Dweck.
it. I
And
do know it.
I realized that I had a really bad fixed mindset, which means you're resistant to change.
Hmm.
So especially having my first kid at this point, we had one, and then we didn't even have one on the way yet, but new family, a lot of responsibilities, and then a new job was a little scary because I'd been doing banking for 8 years right out of college at that point. So yeah, it was just working on myself a lot. I'm a big, I guess another like personal thing about me is I'm a uh, self-improvement lifelong learner, I guess you could say,
Oh
and
yeah.
also a fitness enthusiast. And I think both of those things go hand in hand. I think you take care of your physical body,
Yep.
but you get a lot of these people at the gym that they're looking at how impressive they look in the mirror, but they don't put any time investing up here, which is your mindset. So I think both of those things are important. So I'm a big believer in both of those. That's something that we want to teach our kids as a legacy, is be in good shape so that you can serve more people. That's
Yes.
something about our family, just personal beliefs. I don't push to some people, but we believe in Jesus. We believe in just modeling as best we can the life that he demonstrated when he was here.
Yep.
And that's treating people right. And first, it starts with treating yourself right. The word says that you got to love other people as you love yourself. But
Yes.
a lot of people don't love themselves because they're not in good shape physically. They know that they're not doing things that would make their life better. But we can go down a whole podcast on that, I'm sure. But
No, and it's an interesting one because it's basic, but it's overlooked. And
right,
I think that, before you can love others, you do have to love yourself. You have to appreciate who you are and the uniqueness of it. And I tell you, when you said about working on the mind, I like this, I guess, because I had to rebuild certain areas of my brain. And so Jim Quick, who wrote Limitless, he talks about training your mind and how the digital phone has transferred the brain to a digital device. And it's that whole thing. If you don't use it, you lose it. If that muscle can atrophy real quick if it's not used. Same with this up here, that, you got to constantly nowadays use that brain more than you did back when you had to remember phone numbers, when you didn't have GPS on your phone, you had to remember, roads and things like that. So yeah, I agree with you on the lifelong learner and keeping that mind sharp, because today we're under assault from the digital phone
yeah,
and all the things that are digital that really take us away from thinking. And
yeah.
that definitely is not, especially the kids. You
Oh
know,
man,
you don't have to
it's
go very far. You go in a restaurant and the family's out to eat and everybody's on their phone. I mean, holy mackerel.
it's out of control.
Yeah, it
We're
is.
such a distracted society too. Like
Yes.
I always
Yes.
ask people the question, do you think we're smarter now with all the technology we had, or back in the 1800s, the Civil War era when there wasn't that? And I don't know. I think there's something to not having the distractions, having more quiet time where you
Yeah.
just sit and there's no music, there's nothing, no reading, no input, just sitting and thinking
Yes.
is a kind of a lost
Yeah.
art in our society now.
Yes. I was talking to a friend of mine and we were talking about critical thinking. And so that what the thought is there is that, what you say, all that stimulation that's going on in today's society. And are we smarter? And our conclusion, and even Jim Quick, is you have to, if you don't remember things, it's just because your brain hasn't been trained to remember it. So if you're not constantly using that brain to do critical thinking, it's gonna atrophy the same as a muscle.
Right.
So, until college football started a couple weeks ago, I didn't even have a TV. I didn't even watch TV. So, I cut all those extra things out to really focus on, that brain part. And boy, does it make a difference when you can critically think and spend time thinking as opposed to reacting to what's going on the phone, notifications, all that.
Yep.
Oh, I'm curious because you said 7-year-old is your oldest. What has happened as far as, you got the iPads out there and you got learning on the iPad. How is your wife as far as her learning, teaching, the kids? How is that working with the digital platforms and learning today?
Well, it's interesting. We're figuring it out every day. So if you're looking for an expert who's got it all figured out on homeschooling and raising kids, you need to get somebody else on next podcast because it's not me. But we're figuring it out every day, and it is a delicate balance. I was the guy before I had kids that would look at people that had kids on iPads and judge them and be like, I can't believe my kid's never going to do that. And if you followed my family around for a day, you'd laugh because sometimes my wife needs a little bit of a break and she needs one of them to be doing something, whether it's a game or a video. But I'm very conscious of the things, like I'll walk by and I'll hear something that I hear from a kid's YouTube TV, and it just makes you kind of perk up and be like, I don't know that my 7 and 5-year-old need to hear that. And it's nothing major. It's the things they learn at those ages. And that's one of the reasons that we're homeschooling is we just saw a lot of changes in the school system, especially I'm a public school guy. My wife is as well. And it was different back then. I don't know how to explain it other than there's just more agenda today. There's more weird influences on our kids where we're all about preserving our kids' innocence. We want kids to be kids. And just the things I hear, people making major decisions about like gender shifts and a kid making that decision, it makes no sense to me. So maybe we want to shelter them a little bit, but we also want to teach them things that we know are going to help them succeed in life, like people skills. How do you communicate with other people? Do you know your Bible? We believe that a lot of the secrets in life are in there. So do you know the stories and the principles of the Bible that can help you? We were taught a while ago, BIBLE stands for Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. It's a book to be successful here when you're on earth, not when you get to heaven. We won't need the Bible when we get to heaven, but it's a book to guide your life here so that you don't have the strife and the chaos. And that's probably the thing my wife and I are most proud of in our life is we got a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. We have a business that we run on the side, family, now soccer starting, first kid in sports, but we like to think we do it all with peace. And that's where the joy of the Lord is your strength really is. We're living testimony to that.
Well, and that does show in your kids, because if they see mom and dad a wreck, what do you think is going to be, communicated to them as they're growing up? It's like, whoa, that's where I think that kids, it's not what you say, it's what you demonstrate, an example that you are.
You could fake it in the boardroom, but you can't at home. At a certain point, your family will find you out. You can't fake the funk there.
They're little sponges and they absorb quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
I'm curious it's funny because I had a lady that was referred to us, and she was through this Kennesaw Baptist Church. And so she had organized this whole workshop. And so when I went to have her mom on there, she says, well, my daughter can handle this. And I went, oh, wow, yes. And she was 17. And I tell you, we got on there after 5 minutes. I said, can I ask you a question? And she said, yeah. I said, are you homeschooled? She goes, yes. I said, I could tell. I mean, the maturity level, the accepting responsibility, the way she described how she built this idea. Nothing against the public school. My daughters were public schools and here locally. So I know there's some good things, but you're right. The influences of today are different than they were 25 years ago.
Definitely.
So you have to be aware of those things. And our brains are not fully developed till 26. So what happens when they're trying to push their views on kids that are 15 years old? We know what's going to happen. It's not going to be good. Let's get back. I love that you've said that. And let's talk about, I know our viewers a lot of times are interested in both your family, but also your business principles. Now, to rise to the top, when you rose to the top of 12,000 agents, what did you do? What was your philosophy of how you did that? What, so our viewers can understand those principles.
Yeah, I can tell why you have a good podcast going now. You ask good questions. So it's a great question. And it's something that we all, the owners of the company, made sure that people like myself that were working for them understood some of those core principles. And one of ours, and we still continue it to this day, even with a different company, because it's a mindset. It's we want to be there for you in the best of times and the worst of times. Meaning insurance can be great when it's, hey, we're getting married, we're buying a new house. Great. That's a high in your life. It's a great time. We want to be there for that. We want to make sure you have a home policy, coverage, life insurance, whatever it may be. But we also want to be there when you got in that really bad car accident that changes your life. And whether that be physically or you have trauma from it, we want to be kind of first response there where my insurance agents took really good care of me. They made a terrible time in my life just a little bit better, whether it was going the extra mile and sending somebody flowers if a spouse dies or things. We were very aware that people need love, they need support in those tough times, and then also we wanted to be able to celebrate with people too with these great life changes. So that's something that we don't have 20 principles on a wall. We figured if you go by that one, you should do all right if we want to be there for you in the best of times and the worst of times. And then we want to treat you like family because you are family. If you do business with us, that's the way we look at it. And with that, family's good and bad. Sometimes you spend so much time with your family, you're going to have rifts, you're going to have arguments. And I might have a customer that calls me and they're not happy about a rate increase, and they might not be happy with the fact that I tell them they need to stay where they're at right now. Because if you don't have an agent that tells you don't switch every 6 months, your insurance score is going to be terrible. And a lot of times I tell that to people, like, I had no idea that was really a thing. I know. That's why you need an insurance agent as a relationship piece in your life where you don't have to know the insurance. You have to know the guy. You don't have to know the principal. You're like, I know B-Bass. He's the insurance guy. He knows all that stuff. So it's little things like that, just coaching our clients, but understanding we want to treat you like family because you are family. We want what's best for you. And I'd say those two principles alone was one of the huge reasons for our success as an agency.
Well, I can see, because it is, I remember, I don't know, it was in Think and Grow Rich or one of those books, and it talked about Henry Ford was on trial and they asked him all these questions. They were trying to stump him. And he said, hey, I don't need to know the answers. I have 5 phones here. I have 5 experts that I call if I don't know, that I need an answer from. So nobody's going to know everything, but you got to have go-to people that'll help guide you through business. What would you say, like on the commercial insurance end, what's a common mistake that businesses make when they're starting out? They go, oh, I don't need this. What would you say you've seen in your years of experience?
I'd say number one for new business owners, their biggest mistake is they just try and look at price. They have price tag mentality, and they want just enough to make them legal, or my landlord requires I have this, so I need to have just these minimum limits. So it's just not they don't know, right? They could have, if they're starting a pizza place, which I'm from New Jersey and I'm a pizza guy. I'm a pizza snob, so I rate pizzas accordingly. But let's say you're legit and you have a good pizza place you open. Well, okay, you're good at making pizza. Where did you learn insurance in that process? So a lot of it's just they don't know what they don't know. And the big thing is they say, well, I just want to spend X amount. Well, that doesn't really tell the whole story. So I think just asking what we do, it's more of a consultative approach. So whether it's home and auto, or in this case, you're asking commercial, it just starts with us asking you some questions. Hey, what are you looking for? And if they do tell us, hey, I just want bottom line pricing, at least I had the conversation and told them, hey, I don't recommend that. If that's what you want, I could surely get you a quote, but we don't recommend that. Based on these questions I asked you, you said you want to make sure that you're covered in a loss. You wanted to make sure that you wouldn't lose your business if you have something that happens. So this means we need to have this kind of coverage. And so without boring people on your podcast, I don't think they care about the intricacies of the coverage on a business owner's policy, but they just need to know that we're going to ask you the right questions to formulate a policy on what matters to you. And that might mean removing certain coverage. If we do a lot of reviews I do with business owners, I'm like, hey, why do you have this coverage here? Why do you have this inland marine coverage? That covers you if you have tools that are in transit. They're like, I don't even have that. I don't do anything like that. Okay, well, we don't need that then. It's
Mhm.
really just making sure that everybody we talk to, Pete, it's customized for them.
Mhm.
I
What
mean,
do you?
don't think you can do it yourself. I watched the
Yeah.
YouTube video. I know exactly what I need in commercial insurance. Get somebody that's been in the industry for a little bit and at least knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're investing in a relationship with you where you can guide them through the maze of business.
Right.
Because you're right, when you're in business and whatever business it is, you got to get good at that business. You don't want to be like, I know everything, then you don't know anything, because specialize, but yet have people that you can just call and say, what about this? And ask
Yep.
questions.
Well,
That's
and
really
I'm the
good.
kind of guy, I know not everybody's like this, but if
Mhm.
I have a relationship with a HVAC guy, I'll give him a name drop if you don't mind
Yeah,
on
yeah,
your podcast.
absolutely.
His name is Chaz Becker. He's with Brody HVAC, runs a great family local business, Kennesaw, Ackworth area. But when I talk to him, I don't try and understand AC. And if he starts getting into that world, I even cut him off and I'm like, Chaz, I don't care.
Yeah.
I trust you. And that's why we lead with a lot of the relationship side. And that's why I appreciate you just giving me time on here to talk about who I am as a person, because that to me is more real than insurance. And if you'll just trust that I know insurance, my favorite clients are the ones where they're like, hey, you said I need that coverage. I don't really know what it is. I just trust you. If you say I need it, put it on there because it's good. That's ultimate level trust because it allows me to do what's best for the client, and you trust that. Um, and that trust is sacred because it takes a long time to build trust. Unfortunately, it takes a very short period of time to
Yep.
lose trust.
It's exactly right. And I think, our viewers, they do appreciate the honesty and the transparency about really understanding what you just shared with, as far as, who cares about the procedure? It's just you want the results. So that person has to be good enough to give you the results you want. You don't care that it's, he jumps up and down and adjusts this and that to get there,
Hmm.
but you want the results.
Right.
What would you say for your personal end? Like, what do people overlook that you've seen consistently in the personal end? Like, do they not cover this? Do they not think about this? Is there
Yeah.
anything that you've seen?
Yeah. Well, if you're a real insurance agent, one of the most cringe worthy statements you can hear is somebody say, well, I have full coverage. That that doesn't mean anything in insurance. But people say, oh, I'm covered. I have full coverage. And they have $50,000 of liability limits. Like that, you have full coverage from the point that you have every box checked of having coverage, but you have the wrong coverage. So that's what we
Mhm.
see a lot is people are just underinsured. And it's because they don't know these things. And we
Right.
do a breakdown where we explain a policy. Like an auto policy has three different buckets. One, protection for other people. That's your liability. Two is protection for you and your family. That's your uninsured motorist. And then three is coverage for your vehicle, which is your comp and collision, rental car, towing, and road service. Those three buckets, that's what full coverage means. But that if somebody is a doctor that makes $300,000 a year and they have the same policy as a 23-year-old that just got their first job, there's some problems there. That person has more financial, the doctor has way more financial liability. They need a policy that covers them, that if something happens, their personal assets don't get used. Now, can a 23-year-old have 100, 300 on their auto? Sure. But that doctor, no, that'd be a foolish coverage limit. And I would tell somebody that. And if they don't like that, I'm fine with it. I'd rather them get the truth and be unhappy about it than just lie to get the business. So it's just things like that, Pete. They just don't understand. A lot of customers don't understand the coverage. They don't understand what they need. Unfortunately, we never took a course in school of just basics when it comes to budgeting, insurance policies. So yeah, it's just a lack of understanding what that coverage means. Like a simple example, when I talk about liability, let's use
Mhm.
that 100, 300 example. That
Right.
means that if you were to get into an auto accident, you would have $100,000 of coverage for anybody that you hit. So if it's me and you in a car accident, Pete, and I hit you, that first number, the 100,000, that's a per person limit. So if I hit somebody where there's only one other person in the car, then that's the max that you have there is the 100,000. Because the 300,000 would be if you had two other people in the car. Now you would have a max of 100,000 per person with a max of 300,000 for that one claim. So one, I say that probably 3 or 4 times a day, and most of the time, a lot of people know that are your age group. They know insurance well enough, but a lot of people that are in that 20 to 40 range, they're like, wow, I never even knew that that's what that coverage meant.
Yeah, I have a personal example that I know my parents' house burned down about 25 years ago, and my dad was underinsured on his home, and it left a financial, hardship. And my brother had to jump in and be a general contractor from out of state, which is not
Oh,
easy to do, even if you're in state. But, if somebody's not constantly updating things and you're not aware, and my dad was almost like, okay, I've got it set, and probably wasn't back then as inquisitive as asking, okay, let's review and see where we are today. So how often do you do on a personal, how often do you review a person's total insurance needs?
yeah, it depends on the person. Some people don't really want to talk about it every year. For the most part, though, yearly. They get renewed. Most of the policies we do are 12 months. Some of them are 6 months, but most of them are a year. And we have people in our office that will handle some of the renewals where they'll do a review kind of without even talking to the customer. They'll look for opportunities, whether it be new discounts that are enforced. And then if it's a customer that wants to have that conversation, yeah, it's a 10-15 minute conversation, which I don't know how much you know about insurance, what's going on in Georgia, but it's very interesting times. A lot of companies are pulling out of the state. Georgia's become one of those states now because the Christmas freeze of 2022. So this, for any of your viewers, people that are wondering why their home rate went up so much. Well, the insurance companies got a little Christmas gift on Christmas. I think it was Christmas Eve or 2 days before Christmas, where a
Mhm.
lot of people in the Cobb County area, total freezes, pipes bursting. It was millions upon millions of dollars of payouts just in this area alone, and
Mhm.
it's now affected the marketplace for 2023 with insurance. And then same on the auto side. You can't drive on 285 in Atlanta without seeing personal injury attorneys. This is a real thing. These accidents that you think should be 20,000 now all of a sudden are 100,000
Right.
because a lot of attorneys are kind of squeezing out as much as they can from insurance companies. And I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad for the insurance carriers. You just have to understand the reality when they're not making money on a product, which like auto insurance, every carrier is unprofitable. Well, guess what they're going to do? They're going to find a way to get profitable. They're going to raise
Right.
rates. And you might say, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Well, I'm with you. I'm a consumer too. I buy
Yeah.
insurance and sell it. It's unfortunate, but there's reasons behind why there's certain, and that's why you need somebody to help you understand. Like one quick tip for your viewers, I'm telling people take your home insurance deductible from 1,000 to 2,500 because it does two things. It's going to save you a little bit of money, but more importantly, it's going to make you think twice about filing a quick claim that's going to hurt you more long term than solve a short term fix. Like if you have a $3,000 claim, but you have $1,000 deductible, you might think, oh, this is great. I'll file the claim, pay my $1,000, it's covered. Whereas if you had the $2,500 deductible, you'd probably just do it yourself, right? You're not going to file the claim. And now you don't have a claim on your record. Your rates don't go up because of a claim. And from an eligibility perspective, a lot of my customers right now, if they have one claim, certain
Mhm.
carriers aren't taking them. And so it makes you really hard to insure in the marketplace. So just a
Right.
little quick tip like that kind of makes more sense for them, and it saves them a little bit of money as well.
That's good to know, because there's so many things that go into making decisions in your business. You want to try to take things off your plate, and if you have to be concerned about all these different things, you can't focus on your business. So
Yep.
having a person like yourself who walk you through the different options that a person has makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
What
and you
would
have to know, if you don't
Mhm.
mind me saying too, one
Yeah.
point on that with homeowners insurance, a lot of this is another reason for the increase in prices here. A lot of people think in homeowners insurance is like a roof replacement policy. Like, oh, I've had my roof for 20 years, now insurance should replace it. That's not the purpose of insurance for a roof. It's so if an event happens, if there's a hailstorm, if there's a major storm that does damage to your roof, now insurance should pay for that. And unfortunately, for the consumer, we've enjoyed the experience of having insurance companies pay for new roofs for a lot of
Right.
wear and tear stuff, but now we're
Right.
paying for it. because again, they started losing money. There's more payouts. And that was never the intention to begin with, was just so you can get a new roof from your insurance company. I always make fun of, like, a lot of roofers. People will tell me, I had a roofer knock on my door and say I needed a new roof and insurance would pay for it. I'm like, yeah, I've not met a lot of roofers that wouldn't say that. That makes sense for their business, but it doesn't mean that's the intention of your homeowner's policy.
No, I think they did that about 15 years ago. They were in my neighborhood at the time, and we had some hail, but they were hitting the doors, and I guess they got enough insurance companies to pick up the tab, and new roof gets on there. And hey, there's nothing for free out there.
That's right.
Eventually, something happens. You don't just get a free roof because you look good or something. It's right. There are some consequences to that. What would you say? I like when you said mindset. It was a book you read. Is there another book that in business for our viewers that you have appreciated with some good insights that you've gotten from it?
Man, how much time do you have? Yeah,
I love books. So
I'm a reader.
You have a full look. You have a green light here.
All right, good. Well, what's funny, my story, I was given a book when I was like 21 years old, and I was cocky college guy, muscular dude, thought I knew everything in the world, thought I was the, God's gift to everything. Yeah. The guy gave me a book, and I'm like, I'm not a big reader. And he said, if this book can help you make six figures in a career that you embark on, would you read it? And I'm like, yeah, give me the stupid book. And so I read a book called The Magic of Thinking Big.
Oh, yes. I've read that one. That was one of my first, I think. Yeah.
I'm just telling you, I went from cocky person knowing everything in the world to reading that book in about 3 to 5 days. I was actually in college. I drove home, and I remember I kind of snuck away when my parents were watching TV. We were watching sports because I just wanted to read the book. And that started a journey with me. 16 years later, I'm 36 years old. Right. I read voraciously, and it's not to impress people. It's because I need it. Just the same way I need a workout every day for my body. I just need it to stay positive and to make sure I'm putting the right things in. So I'd say one I read in the last 12 months, more on a personal level, just where I'm at in life. When I was in my 20s, it was hard charging. I'd work all the time. No, I didn't care. I would put in the hours. It was all about making money, personal gain. Well, fast forward, I'm 36. I have 4 kids. Life's changed a little bit. There's a book I read called The Gap and the Gain.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my Dan Sullivan. I love it. Oh, yes.
You read this one?
Oh, all of them. All 3 of those books.
It changed my life. Yes. Because it made me realize you're not as much of a screw up as you think, B-Bash. You're doing all right. And as silly as that sounds, he talks about a simple exercise in that book of, instead of measuring your progress from 10 years out. So, okay, I'm 36. I'm looking at 46, and I'm like, man, I have all these huge goals. How is it going to happen? I thought I'd be at 36, way further ahead. And you start you're your best cheerleader, right? And then you become your own worst enemy. And he said, why don't you track progress from 10 years ago? And I did that. And I said, at 26, where was I? And it was amazing to me to think I had no kids. I was in a position where I still thought I knew everything. It took me a while to learn how to listen to people and how to empathize. Yeah. I'm like, man, I've become, and I took inventory. I made a list of the things that were in my life, and it really made me value the things like, wow, I'm not doing so bad. Like, I am further ahead. And when you operate in business with that mindset, see, it always goes back to mindset. Now you feel like you actually do provide value for other people. And I don't mean this in a cocky way, but I know if you're my client, you have the privilege of doing business with me. I've invested in myself so that I can say that statement. I heard Jim Rohn say years ago, he's the GOAT, by the way. Yes. Best motivational speaker ever is Jim Rohn.
Classic.
No debate. I don't want to hear it. Anybody wants to argue with me, I'll go toe to toe with you on that one. But he says, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Yes. And I took that to heart, and it's opened up definitely a lot of opportunities, a lot of great people that I've met. Just because of having that mindset of work hard on your job, but really work hard on yourself, and you're going to rise to the top in whatever you do.
No, Jim Rohn, I mean, that guy's a classic guy.
The best.
I don't know, you're younger than me, but there was a thing called the People's Network. It was a prime dish network, and it was all personal development. And so my girls were young at the time, and Jim Rohn was a host on there. And so I was like, not making them, but encouraging them to watch that. And they, to this day, give me a hard time about
that's hilarious
trying to indoctrinate them into personal development. But Jim Rohn, he's the godfather
he's amazing
of personal development. Just he has that real calming, like Tony Robbins. I like Tony. He does a good job. But, Tony's rah, rah, in
Yep.
your face
In your
and all that
face, a
kind
lot
of.
of hype.
Yeah. Jim Rohn is like, he's just
He's like your
very.
grandfather, just listening to
Yes,
practical wisdom.
exactly.
And
It's
another
like
book,
every word. Go ahead.
another book I'll give a shout out to. This is more,
Yes.
probably women can read this book for sure, but there's definitely a man book at the soul of a man is a book called Resilience by
Right.
Eric Greitens.
I
And
don't know
it's
that.
a fascinating book. I like Stoic philosophy type
Right.
stuff. Ryan Holiday. I don't know if you've read any of
Yeah.
his
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No.
Stoic wisdom, but the book is about two Navy SEALs writing letters to each other. The author is the one that's writing letters to a guy named Walker who's just struggling post-military. He's having a problem finding his identity. He's finding himself in the bottle, making bad decisions. And so it's this exchange of letters back and forth that's just incredible wisdom. I've read that book 3 times now, and it's
Wow.
I've recommended it probably to 50 people, and I've probably bought the book for 10 to 15 people is how much I like it. But it's called Resilience by Eric Greitens. Great book.
Well, I pride myself but like you said, the gap, the who, not how. That was on my list. It was about 4 or 5 months ago, and it changed our business because we started looking for the who to represent, and bringing them to the table. And those books are so good, but I'm surprised because I usually like Think and Grow Rich. I bought 20 copies and I was giving them out to people. So I had so many of those copies, but I've never heard of Brazilian. I mean,
I figured you know a lot of the ones that if I mentioned just the popular ones, so I had to give you a little underground book there.
Stumper. Hey, that's for our viewers too. The fact that you've read it 3 times, viewers take note. Anytime somebody reads a book twice, you know that it's not just a quick read, put it on the shelf, forget half of it, and just move on.
Well, sometimes it's better to read, instead of read 12 books in a year, read one book 12 times. You'll get way more out of it. And if you apply it to your life, you'll have better results. I was guilty of that because I've always been I just want to read everything there is because I want to know more, just a constant search. But sometimes I have to slow down and say, look, that book really affected you. Why don't you give that one another read?
Yeah.
Because you needed it.
Well, I'm going to give you one since you gave me a great one.
Okay.
It's called Limitless by Jim Quick.
Okay. You had mentioned that. Okay.
Yeah. He is probably, he grew up with the boy with the broken brain. And so he was labeled by a teacher because he fell and hit his head. So he was always in the slow learning, remedial learning. And he realized that it wasn't that, it was just his mindset. And he consults with the Googles, the Facebooks, all the actors, all these people, because he trains the brain to speed read. He trains the brain to memorize. He trains that brain to be the sponge that truly is. And I don't know if you've heard it, but like they always say, like, we only use 5% of our brain or something like that, whatever low percentage. Well, this guy, I mean, you watch some of his YouTube. I have his book. I read it every day, and I've gone back into it, going through it, because this thing is a muscle. And if you use it, it's going to grow. So the fact that you're constantly reading and a lifelong learner just speaks to the philosophy of growing and growing and growing. And I think you'll appreciate his approach, because I've never heard anybody train the brain like he trains the brain. And I guess it's growing up. When you grow up with the label of the broken brain, it's going to have some kind of effect on you.
Definitely. Well, I will. I love book recommendations, so I will definitely check it out. And you're right. The reading for me, I'm a Philadelphia sports fan, so our Philadelphia Eagles fans aren't typically known for their positive mental attitudes.
Yes.
So we need to read to counteract
you born
that.
In Philly?
Out South Jersey, so right over the bridge of Philly. Yeah, about 25, 30 minutes from Philadelphia. Yeah.
Oh, see, I'm Philly main line. We used to go to the Jersey Shore. My cousins, they come down here now, and they're from up there. And so
it's the only thing I miss about New Jersey. Well, 2 things is the pizza and then having a beach close. Yeah. Georgia, we need a beach somehow. We need geographically to just make that work.
Yeah, it's not a couple hour deal. It's like a 4.5, 5 hour deal.
Exactly.
So you're right. All right. Well, Brian, we have to let you go because 4 kids and a busy insurance business we can't talk about life all day long. We have to apply some of our skills.
Absolutely.
So
Thank
I
you.
want to thank you. And we always do this. So I know you mentioned your HVAC person, but we always like our guests to recommend who they think would be a good guest for our viewers. Is there somebody off the top of your head, or should we go?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got somebody for you.
Okay.
And I'll talk to him about it too. His name is Reed Moore. And he's a commercial real estate agent. His company is TOA Commercial.
Okay.
And he'd be great. He's a great storyteller. Me and him, we have a ton in common. We're both meatheads. Kind of joke about that, but we're both serious about life. We're serious about doing things right for our family and our businesses, for our health. So yeah, he'd be another guy that for sure you'd love to have him on here.
Awesome. Well, we'll do that. Tell our viewers how to get a hold of you. We'll put some stuff in the show notes, but just tell our viewers how they get a hold of you.
Sure. You could really, an email. I check email quite frequently. That is BDBAS, like Sierra, 312 at Gmail. I also do social media. I don't do a ton of it, but Instagram, because everybody says I'm a hype man. My tag is bbass_hype man, HYPEMAN.
Okay.
And if you just need somebody to be a cheerleader and say that they're rooting for you, or you need prayer, you need somebody to tell you that you deserve to win, you deserve to succeed, you call me, because I'm that guy. I'll do that for you, and I'll let you know that we can kick butt together.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we put links in the show notes, so it make it easy for our viewers to get.
Thank you again for having me, Pete. Appreciate you.
You're most welcome. And we always give our guests the last word. So what would you like people to go away with when they remember you from the podcast?
I will just say this, and my 20-year-old self will laugh at my 36-year-old self for giving this piece of advice with an open mic. I would just say, just show some love. We live in a world that's real negative. It's real easy to find. You go on social media, you look in the mirror, you talk about how much you don't like yourself. Just show some love. Show some love to yourself. Show some love to other people. Be an encourager. Let's prove the media wrong. How the media says we're all racist, we all hate each other, we're all this. Let's just prove them wrong and show some love, and let's be known for that. Because like your wrist says, Pete, that's what Jesus would do and did do. So thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. Brian, thanks for taking the time for being on the podcast. We really appreciate you coming on here.
Take care.